invitation is very much appreciated by our patron, His Royal Highness Prince Michael of Kent, who was delighted when I told him that we had received this invitation. And it is both a great honour and a real pleasure and privilege for me personally to be here. Sterk Tiluga, Dansk, Russisch, very warm congratulations to the Danish-Russian Association on your 100th anniversary. I very much welcome this opportunity to share our experiences with you and with the Finland-Russia Society and the Civil Society. The Great Britain-Russia Society, by contrast with the Danish-Russian Association, is relatively speaking a new organisation. Though our predecessor organisation, the Great Britain-USSR Association, does go back a bit further. Our original association was set up 65 years ago in 1959 at the height of the Cold War by an act of Parliament, believe it or not. This followed a groundbreaking visit to the USSR by the UK's then Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan. The principal purpose of our original organisation was to provide a non-political channel for cultural contacts of all kinds between the UK and the USSR. 1973 to 2000. This is a picture, obviously, of the front cover of the book. I have to report the sad news that John Roberts recently passed away on the 10th of April, shortly after his 91st birthday. A good example of this arose during the official visit of Yuri Gagarin in July 1961. This followed his historic spaceflight earlier that year on the 10th of April. The scheduled programme provided, amongst other things, for Major Gagarin to have tea with Queen Elizabeth at Buckingham Palace. However, the Soviet side said that their pioneering cosmonaut, the first man in space, would be, quote, too tired to attend a large-scale reception that the association planned to give at the banqueting house in Whitehall. That reception was to be hosted by the association's then president, Lord Attlee, and to be attended by a large number of major government figures and other important dignitaries, pretty much the whole of the British establishment. It would have been highly embarrassing if Major Gagarin hadn't appeared. So someone on the British side had the bright idea of discreetly mentioning to the Soviet embassy that Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth herself had a very heavy programme. And the association's attempts to invite Andrei Tarkovsky, who lived from 1932 to 1986. Tarkovsky, of course, is widely regarded as one of the world's greatest film directors. John's persistence over a period of 4 years with the Ministry of Culture and Goskino finally paid off when Tarkovsky was allowed at the last minute to accept the association's invitation to London in February 1981. The association continued to ensure that the door from the West to the USSR was kept open and arranged visits to Moscow to meet leading literary and theatrical figures there, and reciprocal visits by such figures to the UK. A major visit took place in September 1983. This was when Yuri Lyubimov, the celebrated theatre director and founder of the Taganka Theatre in Moscow, arrived in London to start work on the production of Crime and Punishment at the Lyric Theatre in Hammersmith. Lyubimov was keen to have an interview with a British newspaper in which he intended to ventilate his views about Soviet cultural policy. This swift and decisive action saved the Centre, Stroke Association, from extinction, and over the next 17 years, Daniel Selchstein built the Society into the thriving and successful organisation it became under his leadership. I won't read out all the details here, but you can see the dates when Daniel served as chairman, his successor Stuart Tom, who I took over from as chairman in 2019. And absolutely, justifiably and deservedly, Daniel was awarded an OBE in the Queen's New Year Honours List in January 2013 for services to promote UK-Russia mutual understanding. We decided that after this, we should hold an inaugural memorial, we should hold a memorial lecture every September in honour of Daniel. And in September 2021, we had the inaugural lecture delivered by our president, Professor Jeffrey Hosking. The title was Soviet Literature Turns to the Past. I think very much like the Danish-Russian Association, if I say so. We are an independent, non-political and non-governmental UK-registered charity. We have no connection with the Russian government or the Russian state, or for that matter, with the British government or the British state, or indeed with any other government or state. Our charitable objects are to educate the public about all aspects of the Russian Federation and the other countries which were formerly part of the Soviet Union. Specifically, the Society's primary purpose is to promote a wider and deeper knowledge, appreciation and understanding of Russia and its near neighbours. It proves to be very supportive and appreciative patron of our society. He takes a close interest in our work, and not least in these difficult times for Indo-Russian relations, and attends our meetings when he can. From leading experts on political, economic, social, historical and cultural subjects, and secondly, by way of the Society's journal, East-West Review. This is published 3 times a year. It's a high-quality illustrated publication with articles on a wide array of topics, as well as book reviews, and is stocked by the British Library and other national and university libraries throughout the UK and the Republic of Ireland. Visits to the Bolshoi Ballet always proved very popular. A great event, I remember it, I went personally, in January 2005, was when Grigory Yavlinsky appeared. We had to hire different premises, we had several hundred people for that, and he spoke very eloquently then. He is the economist, politician and leader of the Social Liberal Yabloko Party. We organised a visit to an exhibition that was running at the Queen's Gallery in March 2019, which highlighted the strong links between the British royal family and the Imperial Russian family. It was very, very compelling to hear from him how difficult it was to do his job, and the work of Medusa. I may have mentioned to 1 or 2 colleagues here today, quite amazingly, on the 10th of February 2022, we all remember this period so well. No one wanted to believe there was going to be an invasion. I couldn't believe this was going to happen. But we had an objective, impartial, very factual account by a military analyst, former US Marine officer, but not of the gung-ho variety, a totally sober account. He sketched out 3 or 4 different scenarios as to what might happen. He said the most likely would be a full-scale invasion, which regrettably, of course, turned out to be the case. These are particularly important because the theme I'll be just summarising at the end, and I do believe in so passionately, is maintaining contact with Russian speakers in this current period. We had a wonderful talk in September by Dr. Alexandra Borisenko, by the way, given in impeccable, utterly impeccable English, a professor at Moscow State University, and her theme was the impact of British literature in Russia. Our summer program, as you can see. We have a film about the poet Mandelstam by Roma Liberov. He's a very talented Russian director. That film is in Russian but will have English subtitles. We have a choral concert by the Slavic Verses Choir on the 12th of June. And then on the 20th of July, we have a talented young musician who's talking to us about Shostakovich's 13th Symphony and Yevtushenko's Babillage. In the GB Russia Society, we think it right, as far as possible, that we should continue to present an accurate picture of events in Ukraine and Russia. At the same time, we need to recognize that a regime is not the same as its people. So we believe that it's important to maintain a balance in our programming of talks and selection of articles for publication in East-West Review. And we believe strongly that there can be no question of our boycotting or cancelling Russian culture or Russia, as Sergei Loznitsa has spoken and written about this most eloquently. We are therefore continuing to provide an insight into the culture, history and politics of Russia more widely, as well as of its near neighbours, with a view to enhancing knowledge and understanding. And those 3 talks I mentioned recently are illustrations of what we're trying to do. And we're very keen to continue and extend this personal contact and to keep the bridges between people in Russia and the United Kingdom open. When I mentioned this to our patron, His Royal Highness Prince Michael, on Wednesday, he expressed his wholehearted support for this approach and emphasised that while it isn't always the easiest thing to do, it is of prime importance to keep the doors to Russia open. Let us not forget the many positive aspects of Russian culture. I'm sure I don't have to do it to a Danish audience, but let us continue to celebrate the flowering of Russian culture that took place in the 19th century, which many people have said is one of the greatest events in the history of world culture. The level of achievement comparable with that of 5th century Athens and 16th century Renaissance Italy. Let us keep the bridges open. Pushkin will outlive Putin. Let us not give up hope that there will be a free and democratic Russia in the future. Прекрасная Россия будущего.